Hello, 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 and welcome to Nursing News You Can Use at 5. I'm Tina Baxter, your host. I thank you for being here and watching today. We have some big news coming up. I did want to say that I wanted to start out with our affirmation, and thank you. I had a nice little break last week, so we're back at it again. Okay, so for here, today is August the 13th, 2025, and your affirmation for today: you are the only one that you will ever be. You are kind of a big deal. You are the only one that you will ever be. You are kind of a big deal. That's our affirmation from today from the You Are a Badass calendar by Jen Sincero for 2025. Well, let's go ahead and get into the news. I would like to say that there are some very disturbing topics that we will be talking about today in the news. So I want to issue a trigger warning. For those of you that are sensitive, if you have children in the room, you may want to remove them because we are talking about some sensitive topics today. And I will do my best to maintain some decorum with those as well. All right. So here we go. This is our first story. And this is a hard one, y'all. But again, because it involves healthcare nurses, I want to make sure we cover it. It says 15 nurses fired by hospital after 12-year-old girl dies by unaliving herself under their supervision, reports say. This was reported out of Spokane, Washington. Let's get into it from Gray News. 15 nurses have been fired at a Washington State Children's Hospital after 12-year-old girl unalived herself at the facility while she was advised to have 24-hour supervision. According to a filed lawsuit on the night of April 13th, Sarah Ninyimbona, 12, left her home in the Sacred Heart Children's Hospital and was unalived after jumping off a parking garage. So here's more to the story. Beginning in late 2024, Sarah was repeatedly admitted to Sacred Heart's emergency department because of multiple attempts on her life. The filing says that despite the need for 24/7 supervision of Sarah, Providence removed the healthcare worker assigned to monitor her, along with removing the video monitoring system from her room. This kind of makes me wonder. I'm like, okay, so if you're going to take the live sitter away, why would you take the electronic monitoring at least? But then again, the other thing that I also heard was that from some other sources that I can't really verify. So a lot of this is, again, just what I've heard, and maybe some of you have heard more to this story. But they actually took out the electronic monitoring first and then took out the physical sitter that was there. So somehow Sarah was then able to reach the fourth floor of the parking structure on the hospital where she jumped off, suffering her catastrophic injuries. 15 nurses have since been fired. One nurse was disciplined after being questioned over how Sarah was able to leave her room undetected. According to multiple reports, the nurses improperly accessed Sarah's medical records without being directly involved in her care, a potential violation of the federal health privacy law, HIPAA. The union said the nurses have filed a grievance, a process that could take a long time to resolve. So there is a GoFundMe page in honor of Sarah that's been set up, I am assuming, for the family and some of the legal expenses that the family is experiencing right now. And my heart goes out to the family. So if you're having suicidal thoughts or any of those types of thoughts, please contact 988 and get the help that you need. But my heart goes out to this family because I'm not sure how this happened and why those decisions were made, other than there was more to that they were trying to cover short staffing. The administration decided that since she hasn't, I guess, tried anything for a while, she was safe. I'm not exactly sure. This is a pending case, and obviously there's litigation that's going to be involved too. So we'll keep an eye on this as well. So let's go ahead and check out some other stories, because I do have an update to this story, which is one of the reasons why I brought this story forward, was because there was an update and with the nurses that were fired. So let me get to that story. Just one moment. Okay. So Yeah, so there is a here it is. Yeah. This is from the Spokesman Review. This is a follow up to that story, and it says fired Sacred Heart nurses filed grievance in case. And so let's get into this further. It says 15 nurses at Providence Sacred Heart Medical Center have been fired after the hospital administrators claim they improperly accessed the private medical records of a 12-year-old girl who unalived herself in April. The nurses allege that they are being retaliated against for speaking with the media after the death of this young lady. They have filed a grievance against Providence through the Washington State Nurses Association, their union. Beginning in late of 2024, Sarah was repeatedly admitted to Sacred Heart's emergency department because of multiple attempts. On the night of April 13th, Sarah left her home in the Sacred left her room, in the Sacred Heart's Children's Hospital alone and unalived herself after jumping off the parking garage. Her death has raised questions about how she was allowed to leave her room unnoticed and the gaps within health care for children with severe um, mental health disorders. According to Providence, any action taken against the employees were to protect the privacy of their patients. This is a statement from Providence. Providence takes violations of our code of conduct and federal privacy laws that govern private health information very seriously. We review employee conduct and take appropriate action, including termination of employment where warranted. Patient privacy is one of our top priorities. So it does bring into thought again. And again, I don't know if these nurses actually did what they said they did. Again, this is all allegations at this point, but there are very serious consequences for people looking into someone else's medical records when they don't have direct care. My question is, I'm not sure why those nurses were looking, other than it's obviously a sensational case, but why were those nurses looking into that particular chart, and wouldn't they know that access to that chart would have been scrutinized? And if I was the hospital, I probably would have locked it down. But anyway, just a lot of questions that I have. So if you have any more insight and you're in that area and can let me know what's happening, I appreciate that. So according to Jen York, who is the spokesperson, it says that each termination was for patient privacy violations. So you know that HIPAA is a federal law that limits who can look at, receive, or share information, private health information. So at issue in this case is whether the nurses in question improperly accessed Sarah's health records after her unaliving for no medical purpose. So according to the Washington State Nurses Association, the concern for patient privacy comes after nurses may have accessed Sarah's medical records following her unaliving. These instances may have only included hovering over the girl's chart from concerned nurses who worked with that patient. So it sounds like they may have had some interaction with her and may have worked with her, and maybe they were going back in, make sure they charted everything. But then again, you never want to add things to the chart after the fact. I'm not sure why they were getting into it, but it does raise some questions. It says in less than 2 months, Providence Sacred Heart fired 15 nurses over allegations of HIPAA violations following the death of a 12-year-old patient at the hospital. Another one was disciplined. The union was contacted by these nurses and filed grievances over termination and disciplinary action, arguing that any information assessed pertained directly to the nurses' duties responding to the crisis. Not sure how that would be, but okay. Again, I don't know. That's why I'm asking. If you have more information, let me know. The union believes the privacy guaranteed under HIPAA are on the utmost seriousness, but that in crisis situations, nurses outside of the emergency department are often called in to assist with care and provide information related to a patient's treatment. So I guess my question is, okay, so maybe in my mind, given what they're saying, that the patient was in the ED at the time of the incident, right? After the incident, right? And so the nurses that were on the floor where she was staying may have them been called down to give information, look at her chart, do all those different things. So it might have been that. I don't know, but I can certainly see where the nurses from the floor would need to be in contact with the nurses in the ED, if that makes sense. So according to Keep News, who is the director of WSNA, that we reject Providence Sacred Heart's claims that privacy was violated by nurses who were doing their job to assist in efforts to save the life of a 12-year-old girl in the hospital's care. So it may be that they're trying to give information to the emergency room staff to say, hey, this is what's going on. So there could have been that. So the union and nurses maintained that this alleged breach of privacy was not why they were fired. Instead, they said the nurses were retaliated against for speaking with media outlets about Sarah's case. We think this was done in retaliation for stories that were written. An audit of those who assessed the medical records took place after the first story of the girl's death was published by Investigate West. The nurses who were quoted anonymously in those reports were then asked in the closed-door meetings whether they had spoken to the media and later fired. Mm-hmm. The union said the fired nurses declined to be interviewed or identified for the story. Asked whether what the nurses did violated HIPAA, Nadell said that would ultimately be decided by internal grievance process on whether the nurses were being improperly fired. So we'll see what happens. We'll continue to follow that case. But this brings up an important point because there's another instance, which this story we'll get to in a moment, about a nurse who was speaking out and advocating for better conditions where she worked. And because she spoke on a podcast, she was let go. And so that is where, those gray areas come in, because nurses, even as we're speaking out, there may be some repercussions. And I applaud these nurses for speaking out and doing what they need to do. But somebody has got to start listening to the canary in the mines. The nurses are your canaries, administrators. The nurses are your canaries. If nursing is very disturbed, there's something going wrong. And you need to listen, or things like this will continue to happen. So this is why I bring this up, because as nurses, we're often in the front lines of this stuff. So let me know what you have to say if you know anything about this, because that brings me up to our next story, which I wanted to share. This is on the nurse that appeared. This is from nurse.org. And again, I can't praise nurse.org enough. I love the fact that they go out there and find these stories. I really do appreciate them. But it says, nurse fired after podcast criticizing employer sues hospital for retaliation. A recent whistleblower case in Massachusetts has captured the attention of nursing professionals nationwide, raising important questions about patient advocacy, professional ethics, and employment protection. Carla LeBlanc, a former nurse at St. Vincent Hospital in Worcester, Massachusetts, filed a whistleblower lawsuit against the hospital and its parent company, Tenet Healthcare Corp., after being terminated on May 1st of 2025. According to court documents, LeBlanc's termination came nearly 3 months after she appeared on the Outdoor Cats podcast, where she criticized St. Vincent's management for maintaining inadequate staffing levels that she claimed compromised patient safety. During her podcast appearance, LeBlanc linked these staffing issues to serious patient harm, including 3 patient deaths. Now, I have not had a chance to listen to the podcast interview, so I'm just reporting on what we have from nurse.org. But if you want to go listen to that podcast, I believe that podcast still may be available for you to listen. The hospital termination letter accused LeBlanc of making, quote, disloyal, reckless, and maliciously untrue statements about the institution, which they cited as just cause for her dismissal. Well, that's very easy to do. Let's just pull all the staffing records and see who was actually working. I'm talking about time cards and everything. And then let's look at how many patients were on that unit that day, and those different units, and whether or not they were adequately staffed. Oops, did I let the cat out of the bag of how you could figure this out? So hopefully they'll be working on those things. Anyway, I digress. It says this language reveals the tension many nurses face between their professional obligation to advocate for patients and their employment relationships with healthcare institutions. The Massachusetts Nurses Association, the MNA, has thrown its support behind LeBlanc, filing both an unfair labor practice charge with the National Labor Relations Board and a separate whistleblower lawsuit in Worcester Superior Court. The MNA characterized LeBlanc's actions as protected advocacy rather than disloyalty, highlighting the legal protections that exist for healthcare professionals who report safety concerns. So we will see what's happening. So this is the interesting part we're going to get into because there's another story that goes along with that because just after she appeared on that pod or before she appeared on the podcast, the hospital had a little bit of trouble. So we'll talk about that in a moment. But it says the lawsuit seeks several remedies under Massachusetts healthcare whistleblower protections, including financial damages, reinstatement with full benefits and seniority, litigation costs, and a permanent injunction against further violations. This case has gained additional significance as state regulators have reopened an investigations into St. Vincent's Hospital amid union complaints about staffing and safety practices. This regulatory scrutiny adds another dimension to the ongoing dispute. For nursing professionals, this case highlights several critical considerations. First, it demonstrates the potential consequences for speaking publicly about safety concerns, even when motivated by patient advocacy. Second, it illustrates the importance of understanding whistleblower protections and legal resources available to nurses. And third, it reinforces the value of professional organization membership as the MNA support has been instrumental in LeBlanc's legal response. Research published in the peer-reviewed outlets show that many nurses have encountered situations they believe could compromise patient safety. However, these same studies note that nurses are often hesitant to raise such concerns through official reporting channels. Reported reasons for this reluctance include fear of retaliation, professional repercussions, or being blamed, factors similar to those alleged in the LeBlanc case. And I have to say, I just happened to talk to someone in the healthcare field today. Well, I won't talk about who she is, but or who he is. But I will say that they had some concerns about staff members neglecting their patients, going out for an extended smoke break, not doing what they're supposed to do, leaving her to pick up the slack, and feeling like she can't bring it up to upper management because upper management is family and friends with the people who are all doing these things. And so she feels very much like an outsider. And that makes me think. So I just anecdotally just had a situation similar, not quite on the level of this, but a conversation with someone today, even before I brought up the story. So, yeah, she had some valid concerns, and we were trying to talk through that process. I'm just telling her, hey, dot your I's, cross your T's, keep a record, keep a record, keep a record. That's all I have to say. Anyway, so those are some of the things that are happening, which brings us up to this very important thing. So we'll watch how this case goes out through the legal system. If you want to hear more about it, go to nurse.org. But because I was looking at that, that brings me then to this other case, the part of this case. And it says, here's this other news story related to this case, again from nurse.org. And it says unsafe staffing at St. Vincent tied to 3 deaths, 200 plus injuries, federal probe finds. So, okay, can I just say this? This nurse was basically, if they found this in the federal probe, was basically stating facts. So how could she be saying things that were untrue when the feds just found out it was true? Okay. All right, let's get into the actual story. So Massachusetts nurses are sounding the alarm after a damning state and federal investigation confirmed what St. Vincent Hospital RNs have been saying for years. Unsafe staffing and failed protocols have been putting patients at serious risks and costing lives. The joint investigation by the Department of Public Health and the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare Services, or Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS, found that all patients were placed in immediate, wait, let me go back. All, ALL, can I just say that? All patients were placed in immediate jeopardy for serious harm. Now, if you're in the healthcare world, you know that IJ, immediate jeopardy, should send chills down your spine. What does that mean? When you get an immediate jeopardy, that instantly stops you from taking any admissions for anybody on Medicare and Medicaid. If you're in long-term care, that can be devastating. If they pull your Medicare and Medicaid funding, that essentially closes your nursing home. So this is a hospital. So it will seriously damage their ability to do what they need to do if they can no longer access those federal dollars. Okay. So that's not a good thing. Now, I'm not saying the IJ takes that money away from them, but that's like the first step. Unless you make some really good corrective actions and all that kind of stuff, you better have a plan of correction within a certain period of time before they will lift that. So anyway, so the report documented at least 3 patient deaths related to lack of needed RN staffing, a lack of monitoring that required emergency intervention to prevent deaths, and a lack of supplies and protocols that contributed to more than 200 patients suffering debilitating preventable pressure ulcers. Yeah. Yeah. So the deficiencies were so severe and widespread that the agencies threatened Tenet with termination of CMS funding. I told you, for all services for patients covered under Medicare and Medicaid. That's more than 70% of the hospital's patient population. CMS gave the hospital 10 days to submit an acceptable corrective action plan and ordered that all deficiencies cited must be corrected no later than March 22nd of 2025. Shortly after the findings were delivered in February, embattled CEO Carolyn Jackson and controversial Chief Nursing Officer Denise Cavapil, who the MNA believes is the architect of the dangerous staffing practices and failed protocols that imperiled all patients admitted to the hospital, was also let go on the same day as Jackson's departure. So they got rid of the CEO and the CNO. Okay. For more than a year and a half, frontline RNs have been filing official complaints, meticulously documenting unsafe conditions shift after shift. Thank you, nurses, for doing what you're doing in patient advocacy. They described assignments so heavy and staffing so short that it was impossible to round appropriately, catch early signs of decline, or give the kind of care nurses know patients deserve. While we continue to be both saddened and sickened by the suffering of our patients suffered at the hands of these failed and disgraced administrators of St. Vincent's Hospital, we felt wholly vindicated in the findings of the recent DPH report, as it validates every single claim we have made over the last 2 years in our effort to hold Tenet accountable for their failure to value our dedicated staff and to protect the patients we have given our careers to serve, said Marlena Pellegrino, long-term nurse at the hospital and co-chair of the nurses' local bargaining unit with Massachusetts Nurses Association. Despite agreeing to a corrective action plan, nurses say many fixes never happened. In May, a follow-up complaint, the MNA wrote, in many or most cases, St. Vincent's Hospital management has not effectuated the corrective actions submitted to the state or federal regulatory agencies after multiple days of DPH CMS investigation identified safety concerns. SVH management continues to fail to protect the safety and well-being of patients in their care. On June 25th, Joint Commission agreed, stating the hospital had failed to meet its obligations under the Correction Action Plan, which require the organization to demonstrate evidence of compliance to be compliant with the applicable Joint Commission standards and CMS conditions. So now, Joint Commission is involved. Okay. In the middle of this, they fired again nurse and union leader, Carla LeBlanc, after she spoke on a podcast about the unsafe staffing and patient harm. The hospital claimed her statements were disloyal, reckless, and maliciously untrue. MNA calls it blatant retaliation as filed suit. So again, I told you there was more to this story. And so as we dive into it, it sounds like they've just been doing the worst. And this makes me wonder, can we go back and look and see about the corporate structure of St. Vincent's? And it's making me wonder even now. I'm like, maybe I should just take a look here. Let's see. St. Vincent, Massachusetts. Parent company. Let me see. So Tenet Healthcare is a publicly traded company based in Dallas, Texas, and operates as a diversified healthcare services company. They own and operate hospitals, ambulatory surgery centers, and provide healthcare businesses. Tenet originally purchased St. Vincent's Hospital from the Diocese of Worcester, then sold it and later repurchased it along with Metro West Medical Center. Okay. And so my question is it for huh. Aha, yes. So St. Vincent's Hospital in Worcester, Massachusetts, owned by Tenet Healthcare Corporation, a for-profit healthcare services company. Okay, so they so originally it was owned by the Catholic Church, and then now it is owned by a for-profit entity. So then this brings me to my question. Then, um, Tenet Healthcare. So let's look at Tenet Capital. Okay, so it is a publicly traded company, has various investors and financial entities in it. So owned by a mix of institutional investors like mutual funds, pension funds, hedge funds, and individual investors. The Vanguard Group, BlackRock, T. Rowe Price. So they aren't venture capital firms, but rather asset managers who invest in publicly traded companies across various sectors. Has engaged in private placement offerings. Has joint ventures with other entities, including private equity firms, to manage and operate some of its healthcare facilities, particularly those under the United Surgical Partners International. So while it's not funded by venture capital, it does have a diverse ownership that includes institutional investors. So there you have it. I wanted to take a look at it because we've seen before that again it's a for-profit system, so it went from nonprofit to for-profit. So I want to find out a little bit about the background, and so we did this in real time with a quick search. So hopefully that there will be some resolution to this for that nurse and also for those patients, and that they kind of clean up their act, because obviously if you got three agencies saying y'all doing something not right and you got immediate jeopardy, that's a serious thing. That's a serious, you can't sweep that under the rug. So pull up some of that profit money that I know y'all got, and let me see. Hey, I'm gonna go look. Just let's look it up, because I always want to know. Okay, so how much is Tenet Healthcare worth? Let's find out. 15.18 billion is what their market summary is. They are currently trading at $171.87, and they're up today by 1.39 or 80.82% today, just to let you know. So there's Tenet Healthcare Corporation. So if you want to get into that and you want to know that's where it is. Interesting enough, there's other healthcare organizations that you can probably look at, because there's some talk and chatter about investing in healthcare stocks recently that I just happened to see. But yeah, I just want to let you know that they're publicly traded. So if you want to get on board with that, maybe that's what we need to do as nurses, is start getting together, buying up stock in these hospital chains and that are publicly traded, and then demanding change. If we're stock owners now, maybe that might be the way to go. Let me know what you think. So yeah, so that's what's happening there. Let's go ahead and take a quick break, and then we'll get into some other things, including the latest on what's happening with the CDC. All right, so here we go. Let's take a quick break. Ready to turn your nursing skills into a thriving business? At the Nurse Shark Academy, we give you expert strategies, real startup guidance, and the support to go from employee to empowered entrepreneur. Join us and build the nurse-owned business of your dreams. Start today and join us at the NurseSharkAcademy.biz. All right, so yeah, I just wanted to dive into that story, and I thought let's just follow the money. All right, so here we go. So this came from Healthcare Innovation, and it was talking about a couple weeks ago, I think it was now, the shooting again, the CDC. Um, it's saying staffers are alarmed and the unions demanding changes. But healthcare violence is a thing that we've been talking about recently and keeping in the forefront. And this is another act of violence against healthcare workers. So the shooting on Friday, August the 13th, at the headquarters of the Federal Centers for Disease Control Prevention, in which the gunman um, harmed a police officer, unalived a police officer before unaliving himself. Um, After shooting 60 windows in the headquarters, has created alarm among CDC staff members and more broadly among federal employees in various health agencies. And I have to say, um, fortunately, not too many people were injured, so that's good. But we've just seen this escalation of people who are just angry about the situation, their life, what's happening, politics, everything. And it's all converging. And healthcare, we're kind of in the center of that because a lot of this controversy is stirred up by controversial figures in public policy. And this is what's causing some of what's happening. And the fact that a lot of people have lost their jobs, they're worried about their funding. There's all this uncertainty, and this is a recipe for disaster. So it says on Friday evening, CDC Director Susan Monarez wrote on X that we at the CDC Gov are heartbroken by today's attack on our Roble campus, which remains on lockdown as authorities are investigating. A courageous local law enforcement officer gave their life and another was injured. The perpetrator opened fire on at least 4 buildings. DeKalb County Police, CDC Security, and Emory University responded immediately and decisively, helping to prevent further harm to our staff and community. Our top priority is the safety and well-being of everyone. We are actively coordinating with federal, state, and local partners to fully investigate the perpetrator in this tragic crime. And according to a number of media outlets, a large group called on Saturday morning involving Monarez and CDC employees became contentious, with employees questioning her on whether the agency had a plan to address the misinformation that caused this issue. Later, Monarez held a virtual meeting on Tuesday, August the 12th, with CDC staffers who are still working remotely because of the incident. NBC News Berkeley Lovelace Jr. reported on Tuesday that because CDC employees have been working remotely since the incident, Monarez expressed regret that they couldn't meet in person. She says, as staffers return to campus in the coming weeks, it will be different and unsettling in many ways for some time to come. Lovelace wrote it, referencing Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. that, quote, in the wake of the attack on the CDC, staffers have been voicing frustration over Kennedy's past vaccine comments, which they said has fueled growing hostility toward public health officials. Dr. Peter Marks, the FDA's top former vaccine official, said the job of public health officials is difficult. It certainly is. There's a lot of nuance to public health communication. Sometimes it's black and white, but usually there's a fair amount of complexity. Meanwhile, Lovelace wrote that, asked whether Kennedy planned to address vaccine misinformation, Andrew Nixon, a spokesperson for the Department of Health and Human Services, which oversees the CDC, said Monarez and CDC leadership remain focused on supporting staff during an extraordinarily difficult time, as evidenced by their continued direct engagement. So the short answer to that is no. This is a time to stand in solidarity with our public health workforce, and we hope that the media will respect the moment rather than exploiting the tragedy and further exacerbating an already harrowing experience by the dedicated CDC staff, Nixon said in a statement. So again, that's a no. But Lovelace wrote, referring to Kennedy, Dr. Paul Offit, the director of Vaccine Educational Center at Children's Hospital, Pennsylvania, said the irony is her boss is the biggest spreader of misinformation. Offit, also vaccine advisor for the FDA, said the staff at CDC aren't responsible for the misinformation. These people, they're hardworking public health folks who care deeply about getting it right, he said. And Lovelace quoted Joseph Cantor, the CEO of Association of State and Territorial Health Officials, a group that represents state public health agencies, as saying in a statement Tuesday that in this time of heated rhetoric and polarization, we implore everyone to help. To help. So, yeah. Again, the answer to that question is a resounding no. So now the union has come forth. They've issued a survey to CDC employees, and they have multiple demands. So here are the demands of the union. They demand a seat at the table for reshaping safety and security at CDC. Labor union representatives must be present and represented in safety task force and decision making. Okay. Since while it's been many months of the agency ignoring union-related communication requests, we are hopeful that this crisis is a clear and urgent realization that we need to work together. Workers need additional mental health and trauma recovery support. So our employee assistance program has been experiencing longer than usual wait times for months due to abuse we have already endured. We need substantive additional resources. Workers need flexibility before returning to the office. Our workforce cannot be expected to sit beside bullet holes or return to physical campuses that are not secured. Violence prevention experts need to return to their jobs. Funding must be released, and these programs need to be continue to prevent further violence. Excuse me. Provide additional security measures until safety concerns are fully addressed, and they demand that the HHS and CDC issue public statements correctly attributing this attack to the same movements that have villainized and politicized public health workers. Congress must condemn this attack and the rhetoric that politicizes public health workers. We thank the Congress people who have already responded, including Senators Ossoff and Warnock and Representative Nikema Williams. They're asking Congress to hold hearings on threats, harassments, and politicization of civil service and the role of political rhetoric in fueling them. Pass legislation strengthening protections against harassment, retaliation, and politically motivated attacks. Introduce a congressional resolution condemning political attacks on career federal employees and affirming the importance of independent, nonpartisan civil service. Request a government accountability office investigations into politicization and its impact on employee safety and retention. They got some big demands there, so let's see what happens. Hopefully they'll get some of this accomplished. And so my support goes to the staff of the CDC. I just know on my little part that I do with TB training, now we can't even get TB rulers anymore for free from the government. We used to be able to go online, order stuff from the CDC. We can't get pamphlets sent to us anymore. Everything it has to be downloaded, perhaps, except the rulers can't be downloaded. So, we are losing a lot of things that we had in the public health sector. And that's just one little portion. But we can't even get the DVDs anymore. It has to be downloaded as an MP3 file. So it's making it a little bit difficult to access when I train new instructors. It's a lot. And I'm saying that to say that we've lost a lot and people don't realize how much those resources we utilize on a day-to-day basis. And now that we're losing a lot of those things in our public health sector, I'm concerned about what's going to happen in our healthcare in general, because again, it's turning into those who have and those who have not. And even if you have private insurance, your private insurance then may not cover the things that you need because they will follow what's going on with Medicare and Medicaid a lot of times. And so there's a lot of issues that are going on right now. We need to stay vigilant. So I applaud the CDC workers. I wanted to share this because anything that's happening in healthcare that directly affects us, and I'm telling you, this is directly affecting me, not in that horrific circumstances that they are having, but it's trickling down because now I can't get the supplies that I need to teach my classes. I can't get printed materials to hand out to people so they can have it. And that's a problem. That's a problem. And so that's one of those things that we've gotten from the lovely people in our administration and Congress that have no idea what's actually happening in healthcare. And so they're just making it up as they go. Let's go on to our next story. So this one came up. Let's see, where did this come from? Nurse.org, of course. It says nurse arrested while filming immigration raid, and the video is going viral. So there is a video attached to this. I'm not going to show the video. If you want to see the video, you can pick it up on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube. But I'm just going to tell you what's happening. So Amanda Trebach, a registered nurse who was recently detained in Los Angeles while monitoring immigration enforcement activities, was released yesterday evening without facing any criminal charges. Her release followed advocacy efforts by nurse members, community supporters, and organizations such as Union del Barrio. The National Nurses United Union acknowledged the widespread support and collaboration that contributed to Trebach's return home. Trebach had been detained during a demonstration as part of her volunteer work documenting federal enforcement actions with the Harbor Area Peace Patrol. Nursing and community organizations have publicly called for her release and highlighted the significance of advocacy related to immigrant and migrant community welfare. As of August 10th of 2025, Trebach is home, and the incident continues to prompt discussions about the roles and responsibilities of healthcare professionals in community advocacy and monitoring public law enforcement activities. So again, nurses that are out there making a difference and putting themselves on the front lines, I applaud you. Amanda Trebach, an ICU nurse and U.S. citizen, was taken into federal custody outside the Terminal Island staging area in San Pedro, Los Angeles on August 8, 2025. Trebach was present with community advocacy group Union de Barrio, documenting immigration enforcement activities. According to witnesses and advocacy organizations, there has been no evidence of Trebach provoking or assaulting federal agents prior to her arrest. Basically, what they're doing, and I'm sorry, anybody that goes in there, covers their head, comes out of unmarked vans and stuff like that, you guys are, I'm going to say it, I'm going to just call it terrorists. And you're cowards. Because if you want to do this job, then you don't see other police officers hiding their face. So why should you be able to hide your face? So that you can go home and sleep at night and pretend what you're doing is not horrific? And then you hire thugs and wannabes and actors, dried up actors. Yeah, I'm not happy with this, because at the end of the day, yes, if you want to arrest criminals, yes, that's what you're supposed to do. But you're taking innocent people in, and that to me is egregious. The methods that you use are egregious. So anyway, so there's been public support for that. Fortunately, she was released. Union de Barrio, whose mission includes monitoring immigration activity and advocacy for immigration rights, asserts that Trebach's actions were limited to observation and documentation, which are protected activities. In other words, she's just taking video. Multiple nursing organizations, including National Nurses United and California Nurses Association, have issued official statements condemning Trebach's detention and calling for her release. These groups emphasize that nurses frequently participate in community advocacy because social factors such as immigration status impact public health. And this is what a lot of people don't know. So it was all on social media. It's on Instagram and other places. There were protests that began the day of her detention and continued through the weekend in LA. Demonstrators were there. Yeah, so it was a lot that was going on there. So I would encourage you, head on over to nurse.org if you want to hear more about this story, as you know, we're running short on time. So with that, this brings up this other story, which is hitting right close to home. And this is why I'm really concerned about some of these tactics that are being used. And I'm not afraid to say it. I'm not afraid to say it, because I think it's hypocritical that you police black and brown communities, but you like to turn a blind eye to other immigrants, and you're inviting other immigrants. I'm talking about you, South Africans, to come here and saying that there's a genocide there. You came into a country that wasn't yours and you took it over. So I'm just saying. Nobody, and from what I understand from a lot of the South Africans, they're like, what are y'all talking about? So there's all this misinformation that is out there, and it's very frustrating and infuriating when you hear a lot of people that don't follow politics, don't follow the news, don't look at anything other than faux news, and then now they're indoctrinated into believing any and everything that they hear from somebody's crazy whatever. I try my best to bring the stories, and I will admit when things are going well for certain things and people are doing good jobs. I want to support our government. I want to say we're doing a good job in doing what we're doing. But I can't say that now because in so many areas, there's so much things that are in disarray. There's things that are just unbelievably turned upside down, and decorum and just having common sense is just gone out the window. And this is why I'm concerned and why I continue to bring the story. And for the most part, I'm very apolitical on this show. I don't try to get into politics too much, but when it affects us and what we can do as nurses in our care and what's happening in healthcare, I have to speak out. And so here's this story that came from the Courier and Press from Evansville, Indiana. Yep, that's right, Southern Indiana. And it says, beloved Southern Indiana nursing assistant arrested by ICE. The family of a popular nursing assistant at a Tell City, Indiana senior living facility says she was apprehended by Immigration and Customs Enforcement earlier this month and could now face deportation even though she entered the country legally, obtained a work visa, and had an application for asylum under review. And this is why I say shame on you for how you're doing what you're doing. ICE records show Maria Alexandra Rodriguez, 49, is currently housed in the Grayson County, Kentucky jail. Her offense is listed only as U.S. Department of Homeland Security, ICE. She's one of several at the jail with that designation. Rodriguez came to the United States in 2021 after leaving Venezuela amid the political and economic turmoil sparked by the regime of President Nicolas Maduro, who has ordered the arrest of political opponents and has overseen a country beset with food shortages and abuses against women and children, Amnesty International states. Rodriguez opposed all of that due to her altruistic nature, her family says, and returning to Venezuela could put her in danger. According to messages to the Courier and Press from her brother-in-law and sister, Rodriguez went with her husband to Indianapolis on August 8th for an immigration appointment. She was waiting in the parking lot when her husband reportedly came outside and told her officials wanted to speak with her as well. Upon entry, they took her documents and belongings and told her she was arrested for remaining in the U.S. illegally. She stated that she had all her immigration applications in order and had proof of those documents that the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services had given her. The statement from her family reads, however, the ICE officer insisted and confused and intimidated her into signing the document, telling her that the document she was signing was to request asylum since she did not have any pending asylum applications and that the only ones who scheduled court dates for asylum courts were ICE. They showed her a blank screen on a system insisting that she did not sign immediately, she would be arrested. Well, guess what? She was arrested. They said she signed the document under pressure, and then they handcuffed her and transported her to Grayson County. Her family says Rodriguez entered the country on a tourist visa, obtained a work permit, and had temporary protected status while her asylum application went through the system. The Courier and Press reached out to ICE through its official media line Wednesday morning. They sent back the automated response. Thank you for contacting ICE Media. We have routed your query to the appropriate public affairs officer for handling. Southwest Deputy Communications Chief Yasmin Peets O'Keefe later followed up for asking for more information, but said ICE doesn't comment on presumed deportations or dates. Jerry Cunningham met Rodriguez at Oakwood Health campus in Tell City, where she worked as a nursing assistant. She treated Cunningham's wife's mother, who was sent to the facility to recover from an operation. Maria treated her so well, we made sure we understood everything we needed to know to help in her recovery. Maria even came to visit after my wife's mom recovered and went home. That kind of generous spirit echoed through a bevy of social media comments Rodriguez's co-workers and friends have shared over the last few days. In a Facebook post that's been shared more than 200 times, Oakwood registered nurse Jordan Crawford asked anyone who works with or knows Maria to write a letter to ICE asking for reconsideration. Rodriguez's family plans to take each of those to their lawyer. She goes to every immigration meeting. She has done everything they have asked, Crawford Post read. She has a kind of soul. She knows the residents like the back of her hand. The Courier and Press left multiple messages with Oakwood's executive director, but haven't received a call back as of Wednesday morning. So Rodriguez's apprehension mirrors others across the country as ICE ramps up deportation efforts, even against those who strive to follow every step of the country's complicated immigration system. In some cases, ICE agents have waited outside immigration court hearings and arrested people as soon as they walked out, which I think is crazy, no matter whether their deportation cases have been dismissed or not. Then you wonder why people are going underground. Agents in the raids often obscure their faces and roll up in unmarked vehicles, which is, again, what I just said. Cowards. Cowards. So I just know that more than likely there will be some people that will probably have nightmares, and I'm not talking about those that are being deported, that will have nightmares for the rest of their lives, because when it's like going to a war zone and killing a bunch of civilians unprovoked. That's the closest I could come to it. Because what you're doing is wrong, sir and ma'am. And the soul of this country is going to have another deep scar because of it. And I am going to say that and say it with my chest. Because there's too many people out there who purport to be Christians, who say that they believe in justice and will look injustice in the face and smile. And I don't have a problem calling you out. So with that, I think we're going to end today because it's been a heavy day. And I'm going to leave it at that. I'll see you next time. I think that's enough for today. And I want us to think about our actions and how we can sleep at night, knowing that we are targeting the most vulnerable people who are trying to do everything right, and you're still treating them as if they're doing everything wrong. And instead of going after actual criminals because they have a few dollars in their pockets, you're going to let them get away with it. People that have been convicted of all sorts of crimes, but because they have money, you let them get away with it. So, yeah, let's end that here. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to share. Don't forget to like these videos. I'll see you next week.